You know where it goes if you want to schedule payments? What? Yeah.
Wait, I can't hear. Can you hear already, Carissa? Okay. Yeah.
I don't know, how many did you do? Well, I don't really remember mine. Janet.
Hello.
Hi, Jordan. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, it's Lori.
How you feel?
I feel fine. I don't know why, but I was
Actually,
asleep at 10 and
yeah, coming back from Israel is actually one of the easier ones because everything's overnight. You go there overnight and you come back overnight.
true. I feel fine. I did have a root canal this morning, however.
Oh, well.
Nothing says come home like a root canal. Hi,
I
guys.
know.
How are
Yes,
you?
good.
Hi
Hi,
there.
Dina. Happy New Year.
Same to you guys as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this afternoon. Lori, do we have anybody else that's going to be jumping on, or is it just the three of us?
Just the three. Oops, where did I go? Here I am. Yes, just us.
Great. So I'm going to sort of kick off and dive into it. I want to sort of explain a little bit. This is going to be the first round. There's lots of, as Carissa I'm sure can attest to, lots of ins and outs and lots of pieces to the back end process. So the intention here is to sort of train you in levels so that we don't overwhelm you, and you can sort of take this first level and then go play with it a little bit, and then we'll do the second level, and we'll sort of add on over the next couple of weeks so that by the end of it, you guys are comfortable in the system. Of course, the caveat to that is I'm always here. I'm always here to help you. As we get closer, of course, cell phone is 100% acceptable as far as reaching me, and we'll figure out, again, making sure that you guys are comfortable and set up. The ideal goal here is that you guys will sort of be the liaisons to your community and sort of teach the appropriate people the appropriate pieces based on their role in the project. Of course, understanding that I am happy to offer secondary trainings to those people who you think may need them. And we'll, again, figure out just making sure that everybody on your team feels comfortable with the system. Again, of course, when I'm on the ground with you guys for the spring DH meeting, and then afterwards as well, I usually come out for the June visit, we'll do a bunch of hands-on in-person training as well. With me on the ground with you guys to, again, just make sure you guys are comfortable with the process and what this registration system entails.
Perfect.
Sort of diving right into it, username and passwords. So basically what I would love you guys to think about this week and sort of circle back to me at the end of the week is your full-time accounts. So basically those are going to be your highest level of admin in the system. It's going to be people who can control everything. The caveat to that is it's also the people that can potentially cause problems. So we want to make sure when we're thinking through these three main accounts, we're really paying attention to the people who are giving access to you. In the past, and based off of our recommendation, it would usually be either the director or the assistant director, along with two main administrators. So it's either Lori, sort of your role, or somebody who's going to really be in the system, helping the volunteer committees, helping the housing committees, really getting things set up in the system and helping export information from the system as well. To that, you will also have an unlimited amount of what we call sub-accounts and part-time accounts. And those people will be able to get into the system. They'll be able to send emails, pull certain information, but their information, their view is going to be a little bit more limited. So for example, that'll be your housing committee chair, who we will only give them access to visit to view host families at the beginning, and then they'll be able to view everybody for the matching process down the road. Or your volunteer chairs, who are only going to see your local Atlanta volunteers because they don't need access to the remainder of the system. So think through that a little bit as well. Again, knowing there's an unlimited amount of counts. So if you have one or two people that you have in mind sort of to start the process and to get comfortable with you as you're learning to pull reports, that's great. Know that we can always add along the way. And that's typically what happens, is that you'll start with a handful of them now. And as the process and as the registration sort of gets a little more intense and you've got your local community coming in and all of your families and everybody who's hosting and volunteering, then you want to, again, make sure that you've got people representative from both of those committees who are comfortable at least pulling reports. Basically, the big saving grace there, if you start that training with them early and get them comfortable with that early, week of, when your volunteer committee needs an updated report on their volunteer shifts for the day, you guys don't have to worry about being the ones owning that process. You can have the one or two representatives who are comfortable going in and pulling those reports, and then week up, it just frees up your time to really focus on the important pieces you guys are going to need to focus on. Again, that's at your discretion. We've had host communities who opt not to do that. But again, then you just have to bear in mind the workload week of when you're going to have your housing committees and you're going to have your volunteer committees looking for reports and looking for information to be pulled on a daily basis. You're going to have to be aware that that's something that you guys are going to have to manage then. So I encourage you to, if you have tech savvy people on those committees, identifying one or two. And again, I'm happy to do additional trainings with them as well. Again, please spend this week thinking at the very least about those three full-time accounts. If you know before Friday, great. If you need until Friday, that's fine as well. What'll happen is I'll go ahead and I'll invite you guys to join the system. You're going to get an email from JCC Maccabi Registration at jcca.org with information to set up your password and set up your account. At that point in time, those three high-level accounts, again, will have access to everybody in the system. So you will see both your local participants and visiting participants as well. Your onus and responsibility to visiting participants at this stage in the game is non-existent. The real onus is going to be over your host families and volunteers and what you need as far as that is concerned.
Can I pop in for a second? It's Lori. I mean, I think I can say right now, if it's Carissa and I, then the third person would be you, Jordan.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
All right, perfect.
I mean,
well,
that's what.
First thing tomorrow, you guys will get your intro emails with a little bit of information. We'll get you guys set up.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect. You guys make this easy.
Well, it's just making sense. And then we do have
it makes complete sense.
Lauren for volunteers, who is very tech savvy, and she can do that. And we'll figure out the host family.
Yeah.
Perfect. Something that's important to keep in mind across the board with the system is that JCC Association nor RegPack saves passwords. So whether it's for you guys or any of your visiting families, the forgot password is really going to be the only tool to get you back into that system if you forgot your password at any point in time. As far as using browsers to access the system, the one difference between the front end and the back end is going to be that Internet Explorer does not work in any capacity on the back end. For the front end of the system, if you have 9 and above, you're fine. It'll let you access the front end, but if you use Explorer on the back end, you're not going to be able to do anything. So just keep that in mind. And again, it is a mobile-friendly program. So if you're taking an iPad or you're doing something remotely, you can certainly work on it from that device. Again, please make sure you're just using Chrome rather than Safari. Safari will cause all sorts of glitches and issues along the way. In order to log in, you're going to visit a different RegPack, a different website than we use to register our teens, and that's going to be regpacks.com, and you're going to click Client Login. In the instance that when you go to this website, you have your web browser sort of condensed, you may not see that same layout where it says Blog Resources Login. You'll see basically it's 3 gray dashes, and you'll click on those 3 gray dashes, and then the Blog Resources and Client Login buttons will appear. And again, as a reference, guys, you guys will be getting copies of all these PowerPoints afterwards, so don't worry about trying to take notes sort of as we go through this stuff. So once you've logged into your account, you're going to be brought to your home screen. And your home screen, again, for those full-time access and account users, so the 3 of you, you're going to see everybody. You're going to see your users, you're going to see users from visiting delegations. And that's why when we sort of read the front end of the system, you note that we ask people to put their last name in with their delegation. It just makes it a little easier for you guys to see as you're taking quick looks in the system. Inevitably, again, we're going to have 20 Cohen Los Angeles, but it gets us one step in the right direction when we're looking at that stuff. As far as your part-time administrators, they're again going to see the individuals that have registered that they have access to. So any host family members, any volunteers, sort of whatever criteria we've limited their view to is what they'll see when they log in. And it will look just like that screen that you see sort of in this PowerPoint view here. Something that's important to keep in mind is that on that home page, on that main master page, you have 3 tabs, one of which you'll be working in all the time, one of which you'll be working in every now and then one that you really won't touch. The account tab is where you're going to be able to see an overview of each account. So this is going to include the account name, so that Schwartzberg Los Angeles, and then all the registrations beneath it, whether it's mom, dad, spectators, the teens participating. And for you guys, for your host families, this is where you're going to be able to see them connected. So be able to see, okay, I see that Miss Smith registered, but we also know that her 2 kids are going to be in the home this summer, and her husband's going to be volunteering. So you'll be able to see that those people haven't signed up yet and do your follow-up there. There's your main tab, which is where you're going to be spending majority of your time. And it's basically, the subunit is where you're going to be spending most of your time. The main tab is just account names. So it's just going to show you the overall account name. It will show you no registrations associated with that account. And then you have the subunit tab, which is where you're going to be spending most of your time. And that's where you see the individual registrations just by the registration names. And you'll see when we move on a little bit, there's going to be a search tool in the top right hand of your browser at all times. So if you're in the subunit tab, you'll be able to search for individual users through the system. For example, you have somebody who's volunteering, who's calling you with questions and needs some help signing up for a shift. You'll be able to go to that subunit. You'll be able to search for that user's name, open up their account, and make the necessary adjustments that are required for that user. The registration bar. So each user is going to have a registration bar associated with their registration and a general one associated with their account. For the individual registration bars, what you're going to see here is there's that little star. That's the first button over from the checkbox, and that allows you to sort your users and put identifying markers on them. They're only going to be seen by you guys. So for example, if you were looking at your local delegation and you wanted to mark off for Andre, and again, I'll cover this on the back end for the visiting delegations as well, so Andre will get this information. But for example, if he wanted to mark all of the athletes who are missing a medical form, he could do so with these charts. If you guys wanted to go in and track all of the host families who had not yet completed a background check, you could check it that way. There's different features sort of at your discretion that you can use those check marks for. Again, please keep in mind that you are going to be the only one who can see those sort of determining markers when you log into your account. So whatever you set that viewing up for yourself internally, and it will not carry over to anybody else's account. You're then going to see the chat box, and it's this little bubble that looks like a comment box. We ask that our visiting delegation heads do not use this comment box. It's something that we use, both JCC Association and the host communities, to confirm registrants. And we'll talk about that in one of our sort of follow-up trainings and a little bit at the end of this training. But basically, as a host community, one of your responsibilities is to go in the system with partnership from JCC Association and review the confirmation pages from visiting athletes. And we're looking to ensure that all the information that has been uploaded is correct, accurate, and that we can make sense of it. So that God forbid we're taking a kid to the hospital, we have that health insurance card, we know it's legible, and we're not worried about it. So we're an extra set of eyes just to make sure we have everything that we need. I want to preface that with as well that the delegation head has that responsibility. They're going in, they're checking everything. We're just an extra set of eyes, and we're putting our stamp of confirmation to ensure that we have everything we need, God forbid we find ourselves in an emergency situation. So you'll see, and again, we'll review in later trainings, that's sort of that feature of that chat box and that chat bubble. You're also going to see the registering user's name. You're going to see the date they began their registration. It's important to know it's just the date they began their registration. There's no bearing to when they've completed their registration. What we use that for is when we're assessing late fees. If we have kids that have come into the system after the deadline, we know exactly where to assign late fees. Please know that's not the only tool we use. We have a whole system for ascribing late fees, but that's really what we'd be using that date for. We'd be able to see when a user started their registration. In the same fold, if you have a family that says they registered and you're searching for them in the system and you're not finding them, that in turn means they have not completed their registration. Okay. The next is going to be a little bit of a status bar where it'll change colors as the individual registers. You'll see next to it, it indicates the number of forms in that user's registration. As a user begins, it will go from red to yellow to orange to green. Once that form and that little bar is green, we know that user's registration is complete. One of the things you'll also see is the little money symbol, and that allows us to follow up with users who are visiting spectators who have payments to be made. Again, please keep in mind, your local spectators pay absolutely nothing. It is free to attend the program, so that money symbol will only appear for visiting delegations, and I will monitor that. It's not something that you need to worry about. I just wanted you to be aware of what that sort of figment meant. The last thing on a user status board is going to be the set status as. And this for us is primarily important with regards to active versus inactive. The system never entirely deletes any information, but it will store it and make it inactive. So if you have a family who signs up and registers and then turns to you and says, we no longer can participate, we can go ahead and use that set status as to archive their registration. So if, for example, they came back to you 3 weeks later and said, no, our summer plans changed, we actually can help, we'll be able to just reactivate their account rather than asking those users to complete their entire registration again. So I just want to stop for a second and see if there are any questions before we continue on.
Will you just tell me one more time what the chat box was for?
Of course. So basically, the way that our deadlines work in the program is that we have a May 1st deadline for our visiting delegations to complete their confirmation process. And we'll sort of go through a little bit what that means in the next couple of slides. And as a host community in association with JCC, or in partnership with JCCA, we're going to work with you guys to go in and look at these confirmation pages. And it's just for our own onus and peace of mind, and to put our final stamp of approval. So we're going to look to make sure the photos have been uploaded correctly for credentials. We're going to make sure that medical forms have been uploaded with vaccination records.
Right.
We're going to make sure that we have proof of age uploaded. And we're going to save those chat boxes so that when you or myself or Carissa or whoever's managing this process goes in and reviews and it's confirmed by the delegation head, now we're saying, okay, this looks perfect, it's good to go, we're going to put that comment in there. If something's wrong and it needs to be fixed, we're going to put that comment in there.
Okay, got it.
That's really, again, just for your use and my use in communicating to delegations about the sort of finality or corrections that may need to be made for that athlete or that registrant's participation.
Got it.
So then we have the completion status bar, which we talked a little bit about before, and that's going to show, again, as the user completes the status, the number of pages will fill, and that color of that bar will change as well. One of the things that you'll also see is if you click on that status bar, a drop-down will appear of all the forms that are required for that user. So you can see here, it's an athlete registration, and you can see that a green circle indicates that the form is complete, and anything with a red circle indicates the form is not complete. You'll also notice that there are little red dots to the right-hand side, and that indicates that a form locks once the user has completed it. We've made some adjustments this year. This picture particularly is from last year, but on those forms, again, a user will just not be able to log back into their account and make adjustments. They'll have to contact you guys or their local delegation head to make those adjustments on their behalf. Most of these, it's because they're uploads or because they have a legal signature in them. And if it requires a legal signature, we don't want them to have the opportunity to go back in and change at any point in time. We want them to be able to check yes and us have that commitment in writing. So one of the other things you'll notice here is sort of what we were alluding to a little bit earlier, and it's those admin forms. It's those confirmation pages. So you'll see there's an athlete confirmation page and a medical form confirmation, and that's simply because they have two separate due dates and deadlines. Again, as I sort of explained in our first training, as a result of insurance companies, we understand with medical deadlines and being able to see your doctor more than once a year for a physical, we do make that date a little bit later. But we do also want to make sure that all of the general confirmation information is in, so we separated them into 2 different pages. So in order to edit a profile, and it's one of the things that I think you guys will have a lot of along the way, and it's going to be one of the things, and we'll go into it more depth a little bit further on. But as I mentioned before, you have that search tool in the top right of your screen. You can go ahead and you can use that to search for any user. Once you find the user, you can go ahead and click on the form that you'd like to have edited. You'll see in the top left of the screen, there's an edit button. Once you click that edit button, anything on that form becomes editable and malleable. You can answer questions, you can delete questions, you can adjust as you need to, and then you'll go ahead and hit the save button and it'll save that form in the system. Again, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but users do have the opportunity to make any edits for the most part on their own, especially your host family and volunteers. There really aren't any forms that are locked, aside from, again, that basic information. And as you can see in this example, in this picture, that waiver for you in the background check disclosure. So it's just the things that are legally binding that we don't want them to change. Any questions before we move into the next part of manipulating the system?
Nope.
Nope.
Great. So within the system are different features to allow you to manipulate the view of information you have. And one of them is sorting. So sorting, it's important to keep in mind, is going to still allow you to see all of the users that you're privy to with your level of registry, or with your level of access to the back end. So for example, for you guys who have access to everybody, if you're using the sort by, it's going to sort all of those users. However, for your sub-level registrations and sub-level admins, so for example, your host family chairs, when they log in, your host family chair will only see his host family members, and as such, they will only be, those are the users that will be sorted accordingly. In a moment, we'll talk about filters, which for you guys is quintessential because it will allow you to narrow down the type of users that you're looking at. So in sort by, again, you've got several different options as you can see on your screen. You can filter by name, you can filter by when they started their application, how far in the completion process they are, if there's been any notes or comments left on that user. And again, you can click the name of what you'd like to sort for twice, and it'll switch the direction between ascending and descending view as well. This is helpful, we find 9 times out of 10. The completion level is what most host communities are utilizing. And again, that just allows you to sort of sort by who is still missing forms. And then you can reach out to them and follow up and say, you know, we've noticed that you're still missing your volunteer shift form. Can we offer you any assistance in selecting your shifts? And it allows for a little bit more personalized follow-up. As I said before, filters are really what's going to allow you to ask the system and for you to tell the system to only show you specific users and specific things. So you'll see that we've got pre-built filters for you. And if you'd like to utilize those, you'll simply click the filter button and you'll see the drop down of project filters. By clicking on those, again, it's going to be based on your access to the system. So for our visiting delegations, when they click on athletes, they're only going to see their athletes. For you guys, for example, Lori, if you clicked athlete, you're going to see all the athletes who have registered for Atlanta. So you'll also see there's different levels for certain filters. So for example, host family, we've got your primary household members, which is what was called head of household in the past. And those are the individuals who have entered all the information as it pertains to their house. You have host families and volunteers. Those are users that have indicated they're interested in both volunteering and being a host family. And you have general all host family members. So again, we've pre-built filters there for you. And we're going to take a moment here and look through how you can build your own if you feel like there's a more sort of condensed group of people that you're looking to isolate. When you click on that filter tool, you'll see the drop down, and you have the opportunity to click advanced mode, which is going to be on the right-hand side. If you go ahead and click on advanced mode, you'll see you have the opportunity to sort and filter by different categories. Their application, order product and services, assigned to admin, status, payment, superstars, and forms and fields. For your use in the system, forms and fields are going to be primarily where you're doing your searching and your filtering. Forms represent the completion level of any form. So again, you can filter for host family members who haven't completed their host family questions. Or you can filter for volunteers who haven't selected volunteer shifts yet and send targeted emails to those users based on that filtered information. Alternatively, fields represents every single question we've asked in the system. So you can pick any question for any type of user and filter for specific answers to that question. For example, you want all host families that can accommodate teens who are allergic to cats. You'll be able to set that filter and be able to run that report in the system. And as we sort of discussed, filtering by form, you'll go ahead and click on that form button, and then you'll see there's a list of all of the forms that are offered in the registration system. Alternatively, for fields, you'll have the same thing. You'll go ahead and you'll find the form that you want to look for its completion level. Please note that you'll also see on that top right-hand corner, you have a search field or form tool as well. So you can go ahead and type in the name of that field or the beginning of the question, and the system will automatically sort of isolate and just show you those options. You'll go ahead and say, do you want the form to be complete or incomplete? You'll then, once you've selected, you'll see that it'll go ahead and appear on the right-hand side under filter criteria. You always want to make sure that you see the things that you want to filter for in that filter criteria. RegPack sometimes gets a little finicky and will either carry over a filter that you've used before, or it won't transfer over the one you want to click on. In that case, just go ahead, clear all, and reset your filters from that point. You can also filter on multiple levels. So for example, here we're looking at host family questions is complete and volunteer questions are complete. So we're looking for all your users who are host family members and volunteers and have completed both of those forms. So again, the important thing to remember here is that little box that's outlined in blue, and that's all options are required versus any option is sufficient. And that's going to dictate your requirements to the system when it's searching for users. So in this example, if we click all options are required, it's only going to show us users who have completed their host family questions and their volunteer questions. If we click any option is sufficient, it will show us users who have completed either or both forms. So that's important to keep in mind as you're using the system. Again, filtering by field, it's going to be the same approach. However, instead of complete versus incomplete, you're going to be able to select the answer to the question that you want to see. So for this example, we're saying, are you able to host athletes who arrive early? So the question would be yes or no. Again, it's going to be whatever answer applies for all the questions. Again, you can see here as well, you can multi-layer your filter options and your filter requirements. Just make sure you're paying attention that all option is required versus any option is sufficient. In order to apply your filter, you're going to go ahead and you're going to double check on the right again just to make sure all the criteria that you're filtering for is there and present. You're going to double check all options are required versus any option is sufficient. You also want to make sure that you're not clicking the show excluded button. Show exclude will include users who have deleted themselves from the system. So you always want to make sure that that button is not clicked. Once you've confirmed all that information, you go ahead and click apply filter, and you'll see on that on that top home screen, you'll see the filter that you've applied and the criteria that it's searching for. So you'll see here, for example, when we did that search for the field, you'll see this bar across the top of your screen that it's looking for host families questions are complete and volunteer questions are complete. If you ever don't see the bar of questions on top, your filter hasn't run properly. In order to save a filter, so as I discussed before, we've already pre-built a variety of filters for you in the system, but inevitably your committees and you guys are going to find that there's specific filters that you want to use. And in that instance, what you're going to do is you're going to go and you're going to create your own filter through the advanced filter tool. You're going to go ahead and run that filter. Once you've run the filter, you're going to see again the images, the things that you're searching for pop up, and there's going to be a gray/silvery save filter box next to it. You'll go ahead and you'll hit save filter. You'll create the category that you want to put it under, and you'll name the filter. Depending on what you're using this for, I ask you to be cautious. Please be specific and sort of thoughtful on if you're using everyone can use or only for you. Everyone can use, we'll save it for all visiting delegation heads and anybody who has access to the system. If it's something that really only you are using over and over again, please keep it just for yourselves and click the only me button. Sort of within this as well, it's important to keep in mind that you create a category for yourselves and you save under that same category. So for now, you'll see in the system that we have one that says level of participations and it's built for everybody. I would encourage you guys to either subcategorize them as host family volunteer or sort of specific to you guys, or one general Atlanta host filters, and then you put your sub filters beneath there. But just keep in the back of your mind that if you save every filter you're using and you save it for everybody to use, before we know it, that sort of filter with the easy options becomes very elongated and a little difficult to manage. So again, as you can see on the screen here, that's what we did last year. We had host family volunteers as sort of the criteria for the host community, and they built their filters under there. So in order to remove a filter, again, as we talked, you'll see that project filter with the name of the filter and what you're filtering for on top. In order to remove that from your filter and be able to start scratch and see your home screen, you're just going to go ahead and either click on the X that's located next to the name of the filter you're using, or you can go ahead and click on those two arrows that are in that silver box all the way to the left-hand side, and that will bring you back to start fresh as well and remove that filter from your screen. Now that we've taught you how to filter, I want to walk through with you guys running reports. Something that's quintessential to remember is that you must filter for your users first before you run the report. If you don't, that report will run on every user in the system. So for example, if you're running an athlete report and you just want the information for athletes, you must filter for athletes as your level of participation first. If not, it will pull that athlete report for all users in the system, inclusive of your host family members and volunteers, and then the data that you extract is a little confuzzled and you can't really use it moving forward. So it's always quintessential, again, to make sure you're filtering beforehand. Once you've applied the filter for the type of user who you'd like to pull a report on, you can go ahead and click that reports button, which you'll see is located next to the filter button on the top menu. You'll also see that we have a variety of pre-existing, pre-built reports for you. You also have the opportunity to run your own reports and create your own reports, which we'll talk through as well. Again, you've got recent reports. It gives you a little bit of a privy to the ones that you have viewed most recently. In order to view all reports, there is that gray silver button on the right-hand corner, and that will take you to an extended report, which shows all of the reports that are available for you to utilize in the system currently. Again, those 3 high-level accounts, so the 3 of you, will be able to build your own reports moving forward. All of your low-level access admins will not be able to build their own, but they will be able to utilize any that are pre-built in the system. So for example, your host chair or your volunteer chair, we have pre-built filters and reports in the system for them to utilize. If they wanted something extra, either yourselves or myself would be able to build that for them, but they would not be able to build their own custom reports.
So if we build a custom report that the housing person can use, then it'll stay there for them after that, correct? Okay.
100%, Jordan. You'll be able to customize and create whatever you need to. And again, that sort of goes back to hand in hand what I was talking about earlier a little bit. We're finding it's quintessential to find those tech-savvy people in those committees ahead of time so that they can have that communication with you and they can get comfortable pulling their own reports. So that you're not designing and pulling them for them. You're simply designing them and they're comfortable going into the system and pulling out that information on their own. One of the other things that's nice about the system is it gives you the opportunity to what we call set quick view reports. And in order to do that, you hit quick view, which you can see is going to be on the top corner there to the left under recent reports. And that will allow you to select the reports that you're using most often, and they will always appear as your recent reports. So instead of having to click view all reports and sort of sort through the 50+ reports that currently exist, they can go ahead and you guys can go ahead and set those as your quick views, and those will be the first things to appear every time you click that reports drop-down box. In order to download a report and manipulate the information, which is something that we have the lovely ability to do, and one of the other things that I'll show you guys when we get in this and play a little bit, which is incredible for post games, is any of the information that exists in our system, we can also pull in chart and data form. So we can pull into an Excel and see it all laid out, and we can also pull it in pie charts and graphs and all sorts of other demographics as well, which again is great for follow-up meetings post the games to look at some of the impact on your community. But again, once you've filtered, we've pulled the report we want to pull, your screen is going to turn into what looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Now, in order to pull it out of the system, you're going to go ahead and click on the button. It's going to be located in the top right of your screen. And it's going to say download as a CSV. This will automatically download those results into an Excel format. The only thing that's quintessential to remember here is that it is going to download it in a CSV format, which is a comma separated value. And if you save it as a comma separated value, the data will be useless when you try to reopen it. So when you're saving that Excel, you need to go ahead and make sure that when you have the option to set the type of document that it's saving as, make sure to switch it to an Excel document and save it that way. Again, that way the information is malleable. You can go back in and adjust these lists and look at that information as you need to moving forward. So again, we talked about this a little bit, editing a user's registration before. The following forms are going to lock once the user is complete, but anything else is malleable for the users to edit on their own. Again, as we talked about, in order to edit a user's registration, you've got that search tool that's located in the top right. You'll be able to type in their user's name, whoever you're looking to search, and make edits to their registration. Again, you're going to go ahead and click on the form that has the information that you'd like to edit. you're going to click that edit button. Something that's important to keep in mind is that the edit button actually transforms into a save button once you've clicked on it. So in order to save the document, once you click save, it's going to turn into that edit button again. So you shouldn't be looking for two buttons. They're sort of one and the same, and they swap. Again, helping others edit and edit their registration. Users can edit their own registration aside from those forms that lock at any point in time by visiting their dashboard. When you get to their dashboard, you can see there's this category called Manage Your Registrations, and underneath there will be a list of all of the registrations that they have associated with their account. You'll see that right next to it is a drop-down menu of all the forms associated with that user. And as I mentioned before, they can go ahead and click on any one of those forms. They'll be brought to that form and asked to complete their registration. Or again, make any edits or adjustments that are needed. Adding a new registration to an existing account. Again, users can do this from the front end on their own. However, inevitably, you're going to have a couple of users who may not be comfortable, may not be ready, may not know exactly how to do this. So you want to make sure that we're there to assist them and offer them help along the way. And in order to do this, you can go into the back end of the system, and you can actually go ahead and start a new registration for a user in their account. And these are going to be one of those instances where you're using that account tab, and it's really, again, one of the only instances. And in that case, you're going to go to the account tab, you're going to go ahead and you're going to search for that user's account name. Once you find them, you'll see that when you hover over the user, there's a little green circle with an arrow that appears to the right-hand side. You can go ahead and you can click on that arrow, and then you're going to see excuse me, the sort of actions box below, which will give you the opportunity to create a new child subunit. If you go ahead and click on the new child subunit, it will go ahead and give you the ability to start a new basic information page for that user. Once that basic information page has been completed, that user can log back into their account from the front end to complete that registration without any hardships or hiccups along the way. So, I know we just talked about a lot of information, and I know we just sort of the first piece at you, but that's really sort of, again, the first part of this training, getting you guys in, getting you guys comfortable with editing some registrations, pulling some reports, and running some filters in the system. So are there any questions? Is there anything that was unclear, anything that I can clarify or provide more detail regarding at this point?
No, I mean, I think it's really good, and it's actually, it's fairly intuitive, as much as these things can be.
100%, and I appreciate that approach, Jordan. And I think it's one of the things that you'll see along the way is going to be quintessential that your team keeps that attitude. It's one of those things that we're going to get really familiar with the system. You guys are going to be in it all the time, and things that seem like second nature to us may not necessarily be the case to your users. So it's getting comfortable. It's being the cheerleader for the system. It's when that host family calls you and says, I've been staring at this for 8 hours. I refuse to do this. You need to do it for me. It's being ready to tackle that conversation and help appropriately. But it sounds like you guys have a great mindset to start with, which I'm very appreciative.
I do have a question about the sub-accounts, the part-time, like you said, volunteers and host families. And Jordan right now is, in charge of registration, but then is going to come over to Maccabi Central and help do all of that. But in terms of going through registration, would it make sense to give a part-time user, like we have Rick Young, who was on the initial front-end training, and he's doing registration. Would we be able to make him a sub, like, is that a sub account, like somebody to help with registration?
Yep, so
even
basically,
though volunteers and host families are what people are registering for, they have later roles. So would it make sense to give Rick and Michelle, they're the couple doing registration, a part-time account so they can help people register?
100%. I think at this stage, it's even more so than helping register. It's making sure that they're familiar and comfortable editing things in the back.
That's what I'm saying.
We want to make sure we're pushing people to register themselves. But having
a few people that can answer questions about the process.
Exactly. You want them to be familiar enough, and in the instance, again, where it's going to happen, where you're going to try every angle to help somebody and it's just not going to work, and you're going to have to do it for them, and having them comfortable getting into the back end, sort of adding some of those accounts and making some of those adjustments is definitely a good idea.
Okay.
And again, sort of as we talked about, come up with that sub list, and I will do a training specifically for them. Once we've sort of identified what their roles are going to be, it'll be sort of privy just to what their roles are going to be.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we'll make sure they're comfortable with this as well.
Okay.
Again, This is the first of many, guys. We will be spending a lot of time on the phone and looking at the system together.
So you're going to send us the invite so we can set up our accounts, the 3 primary.
Exactly. So basically, it'll happen first thing tomorrow morning. I have 2 more calls today that sort of run past closing. But as soon as I get in tomorrow morning, I'm going to set you guys up. I'll send you an email with a recording of this webinar, with sort of the PowerPoint that goes along with it, with a couple of other good points of reference to know as you're accessing the back end and your back end account.
Got it.
Hey,
Perfect.
Dina.
Yes.
Question. So I have an account. So does that do anything different? Does that just create a different allowance, or do I have to make a whole new one?
So we're going to make a whole new one for you. The one I would imagine, Chris, it's still associated with your Milwaukee email address. So we're going to get you set up with a new one for Atlanta, and you're going to have a much higher access point than you had in the past this year.
Okay, because the only reason why I'm asking is because last minute for OC, I think it might have been you, gave me access to Team Atlanta stuff, so I could pull last minute.
No,
so I still have that. Okay.
Yeah.
Still Atlanta JCC, but I'll just create a whole new one then.
Exactly. We'll just get you set up with a new account. And basically, I'm going to take your work email addresses. If you guys would like me to use a different email address other than the ones we've been using so far, please just let me know. But if not, I was going to go off the email addresses we've been using to communicate up until now.
Perfect.
Yeah, that works for me.
Great. Great. Any questions? Anything I can clarify for you guys now?
No, Jordan, you'll discuss this on our call tomorrow, and maybe you can, maybe Rick and Michelle, one of them can help with volunteers and one can help with host families, or whatever you think.
Yeah, I know. I think that makes a lot of sense in that way. Like you said, as we get closer, and hopefully they can take on a little bit more, but and we'll get them more on the front end processing of registration. Getting the community involved in that, and then from the back end, and I definitely agree. The less people we have in the back end, the better off we are.
Yes.
I mean, just to give a point of reference, and it's worst case scenario, and it physically can't happen again this year because we've set protocol in place. But when we hosted in Dallas in 2015, we were in 3 different communities. It was one system for all 3 communities. Somebody who did not know what they were doing accidentally went in the system and deleted every single user for all 3 communities 2 days before the event.
Oh my God.
Yes, it was horrible.
Yeah, so I was going to say, you lived that dream, right, Chris?
I did.
Exactly. We just want to make sure that we're being selective, and I hate,
No, I don't.
Computer savvy, make sure they're computer savvy, but you want to make sure they're computer savvy.
Right, and Jordan, we can talk about this off this call.
Yeah.
But the only one I know that is Lauren. So.
Yeah, and then for others, this is what I do on a daily basis in terms of pulling information from registration systems and getting it to the information that they need. I'd much rather provide, the volunteer group an Excel sheet with here's your list if they're not, to ensure that they get it the right way.
As long as you have time. I mean, I know I have time. That's
right. And I'm saying between us, we can work those out. And that way, I'm confident that anyone, who's a local delegation, whatever, or if they just got an Excel sheet, they're going to get all the information they need, and they're not going to be able to mess anything up. So
right, so they can just request reports.
Exactly.
Fine by me.
Yeah.
And we'll talk through it a little bit more in depth in the next training with just the 3 of us, but we'll work through sending emails out and what that looks like, and setting out automated emails. So in the instance, for example, you wanted something to automatically send to your volunteer chairs, we could set that up as well. So we'll talk through, again, some of the more advanced features as we move on, but I just wanted to sort of get you, again, a little comfortable so we can get you into the system and start playing around a little bit.
Perfect. Okay.
Really random question. Has anyone registered on our end yet?
Let's see.
We gave the link to our
athletes. So
we can find out right now.
That'd be sweet.
I know there were definitely people in your system. If they're all from Atlanta or not, I'm not sure, though.
Okay. Oh, that first one is a test. That Rachel Mink is me. We can delete that.
Yeah, I mean, we can go in here and delete. I mean, you have 98 people in your system already. Again, some of them are clearly tests. And let's see how many are local to Atlanta. Hey, you're looking at 74 local Atlanta people.
So if we look, all these are all mostly kids. Are they going to then get linked back up to their parents who are hosting? How does that work?
What will happen is then under this account tab, If you can sort of see how
Okay,
it lays out.
okay. Yeah, so, okay.
Yeah, it makes a little more sense when you see it.
Yeah.
And again, the main tab is where you're seeing just those account names, where again, it's, it's the family's last name and where they're coming from. And then under the subunit is where you're seeing just those users.
Okay.
Cool.
And again, sort of like we talked about, now you're seeing this is what we filtered for. We can save it as a filter if we want. And those opportunities appear. Here's your search bar that we were talking about a little bit. Again, your user reports all live here with the quick view. And again, you'll see you can set them as a quick view simply by clicking on them. And it all sort of lives in here. And again, here's your filter tool in sort of real life with your pre-designed filters and then your filter options to choose anything that you'd like as you build them out. One of the other things that's important to keep in mind, guys, and it certainly shouldn't be your first line of defense, but this help tool up here is actually quite helpful. They have a knowledge-based system, which is a variety of videos and helpful things that you can reference if, let's say, it's a Sunday and you can't get in touch with anybody and you're trying to figure out how to do something in the system. I always encourage you to check here. There's always a good chance that the information is in the system for you already. Know that you have the tool as well.
Cool.
All right, guys, thank you so much again. I will be in touch tomorrow morning, again, with sort of the follow-up to this. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I look forward to working with you guys to continue to make this an awesome summer in Atlanta.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, have a good afternoon. Thanks for squeezing us in.
Oh, of course. Thank you for being accommodating.
Yeah. No problem. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.